And as it starts to like feel the pain of this, it like takes a full second for it to even register. And then you send another arrow, and they start to turn, and some of them are wounded, but they kind of notice you standing there. And I think Moss lets out a little like chirp of like, oh, they've seen us.
Yeah.
And then you see them start to like shamble, and then they start to break into just this uncoordinated, creepy run toward you.
He's like, perfect.
Greetings, mortals. Watch out for that first step. It's a doozy. I am Harrison Tarr, and I come to you before we jump into the actual video to update you on a few things that you might have missed if you didn't catch our big news video. This is going to be a departure from the normal content of this channel, in that it is going to be an actual play that I ran for a couple of friends of mine, based on Into the Weird and Wild using the Dungeon World system, and is very spooky. The purpose of this switch in content is to give our main channel editor, Nate, a well-needed and deserved break. If you like this content with me GMing, then you will almost certainly like the Tabletop Sandbox podcast. Season 1 is an 18-episode, or will be, I should say. It's all pre-recorded, but it will be made available to you weekly. It is an actual play Blades in the Dark podcast. You can gain access to the podcast episodes early, as well as exclusive access to Blades After Dark, the after show, on our Patreon. And if you go up to the $6 tier on our Patreon, the normal just podcast stuff is $3, you can also get access to GM resources that I will be releasing every month. Without further ado, let's jump into this spooky actual play for the month of October. You then begin kind of a trek into the wilderness, deeper into, these are kind of technically the wilds, but there are deeper, darker places scattered throughout that are far more dangerous. And that's something that Into the Weird and Wild does, is it will treat a section of the forest as a wilderness dungeon. Let's roll to see if you get a random encounter.
Okay.
Just on the way. So would somebody roll a d6 for me?
Do it.
I've been rolling poorly.
I know. It'll make it fun. It's a 1.
It is a 1. I decided in my head what the chances were, and that means that for this first leg of the journey, you do not have a random encounter.
Oh,
Sick!
beautiful.
I rolled good!
You did roll good. Roll good. Yes.
You move through the woods, and this is, to kind of set the scene, it's fall, because of course it is. The leaves are beginning to dry up and fall, and there's beginning to be a layer of dead leaves that are crunching underfoot, and the trees have begun their journey into appearing skeletal and haunting, more so than they normally are. There's a different kind of feeling to the woods when fall and winter comes that makes it harsher, almost. Whereas the deep, dark green of spring and summer is dangerous in its own right. There's something just almost cruel about the hard, naked tree branches and thorns and thistles, especially when your hands start to stiffen up because of the cold. But yeah, you make this first trek of your journey relatively uneventfully, and I would like you to roll the wilderness tracker one more time, please.
And this is wisdom, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Ooh, 8.
8. Okay. What is the result for that? On a 7 to 9, suffer a minor setback and gain 1 mark. So you gain 1 mark, go up to 4.
Good.
Go ahead and, Rebecca, why don't you roll a d10?
6.
6. Okay. All right, so as you are traveling,
over the next leg of your journey. You come across the ruins of an old tower. Maybe a chapel, maybe a windmill. It's so broken down that it's hard to say. Right now, it is just a ring of stones that reaches up to about 15 feet tall at its highest. That is, the footprint of a tower, and it is surrounded by stone, and there's a low, mostly collapsed wall that kind of runs around it. And you see that congregated around it and within it, there is a handful of these gaunt, horrifying-looking people that you would recognize as shamblers. These are people who the wilds have just drained almost everything out of. People who are dead in all but flesh. They maybe have this kind of dull hive mind. They're not quite zombies because they are alive, but the wilds have just sapped everything out of them. However, they don't typically take kindly to the living. In fact, they are rather irked at the state that they wish they were still in. And so you know that it would be dangerous to go up to them. They're not the brightest, but they can be dangerous when confronted in groups. And let's see. Roll 3d6 for me.
Abysmal. I've not gotten higher than a 3 on one dice.
Well, hey, sometimes
Okay.
it's good. That means that there is
7.
a total of 7 shamblers.
Okay.
Could have been worse. Could have been higher.
It could have been higher.
This is why I'm having you roll for all of this stuff.
Okay.
One day it'll turn around, for better or for worse.
Yeah.
But you see these shamblers are moving around this ruined tower, and you would just avoid it on a normal day. They don't seem to have noticed you, except you see that one of the sets of tracks leads kind of over to this place, and you see the humanoid, or both of the tracks pass by here, and you see at least a step of the humanoid tracks go up to in this direction of the tower, and you see that against the outside of this low crumbling wall that kind of encircles the tower, there is a figure kind of covered in a cloak, a hooded cloak of tattered skins, who is slumped down with their kind of feet out in front of them and their head bowed, unmoving up against the edge of this wall. What do you do?
Gonna kind of like elbow you and point to that figure that's laying on the ground, or sitting on the ground. I think we should check it out.
Yeah.
Distract the shamblers and go in. You distract or me distract.
Shit, hold on. Let me look at. Hold on. Sorry. Hold on. Wait. Hold on. Give me 1 second. Okay, hold on. I got it. Okay. With prestidigitation, I can create illusion that's no bigger than myself.
Okay.
Can I create an illusion of, like, an alive child?
You can. That's a little detailed. I will say you can create the image of a child-sized humanoid. How convincing it is debatable, right? It's going to be like, it's more like you can create the shape of a child that maybe has colors in the right spots, but any close scrutiny would be able to tell it's an illusion.
Then I have a question to challenge the thought that they hate anything that's living. Is it anything that's living, or is it just like living humans?
They were humans, so they have special hatred for humans. Or they technically still are, but not so much anymore. But they don't like the living whatsoever. So any kind of, if it can get its hands on an animal, it will kill it.
What's a big animal that I would know? That's not as big as me, but still big enough to get their attention. Maybe like a sizable dog.
Sizable dog. Is this the one that resides within Bark or no? Yeah, you can create a dog. Again, it's the shape of a dog. It's not a super convincing dog. But you can do it. Does prestidigitation say you can do one effect, or can you do sound as well?
No, they're just illusions.
Just illusions. Okay, so you have to base it on sight. Yeah. Why don't you roll cast a spell, and we'll see how this goes.
Got this. Dude!
Ooh. That's a 6.
That's a 6.
So mark XP.
I've got so much fucking XP. Okay, hold on. And I guess it's a really shitty dog.
Yeah, it's I think what it is
Stick figure dog.
is that it is not a great dog, and I think like when it stands still, it could be perceived as a dog, but as you try to like puppeteer it as an illusion, it moves wrong.
Yeah.
And that in combination with the fact that it is completely silent and doesn't have any of the sounds or like interactions of true life, I think as you kind of have it trot by the shamblers, one of them just kind of looks up at it and seems confused, and then just goes right back to them, and they're all just kind of just milling around in the courtyard here. It is potential that you could approach this body without them seeing you if you stay low behind the wall, but that is a threat that you would have to contend with.
Would you want to do that?
Yeah, I could risk it.
Distraction doesn't really work. And I think maybe they're a little bit a little bit alerted now.
Because I was thinking, like, if I, like, kind of go in, maybe shoot one of them in the face and get them all to trail off after me into the woods, you could go up to the body, and then I would just disappear into the foliage, climb a tree or something so they can't get me. But, like, kind of lead them off. Do these shamblers, do they run?
Well, let's see. What's their speed? Oh, their move is standard. Okay. So they probably could.
Cool. Okay. Yeah. So they're about like
if they like they're right now it's like one step every 5 seconds, and that step is just like a shuffle forward. But they're just kind of milling around. If you get them riled up, then they will come for you.
So I think I'm gonna try to do that. I'm gonna try to rile them up and get them to follow me into the woods.
Sure. What do you do to rile them up?
I'm gonna kind of walk up to maybe 20 to 30 feet away from them. I think he's going to just take a shot at one of them, like just kind of fire a shot at like one of them that's kind of in the middle.
Yeah.
And then make a couple of loud noises to get their attention until they start following him.
First, it seems like when you take aim and shoot at an enemy at range, so roll plus dex for volley.
Cool.
That is our first step.
Yes.
And so where are you as this is happening?
I am probably a little bit away from him, like waiting.
Like on the tree line?
Yeah.
Yeah. Out of sight, sure. Or keeping an eye.
Yeah.
Yeah.
8.
Okay, on a 7 to 9, choose one. You have a really good chance of succeeding. Like it's like unless you have a negative, you have a 50% chance of succeeding. You're just rolling, absolutely so terribly. Yeah. So on a 7 to 9, choose one. You have to move to get the shot placing you in danger of the GM's choice. You have to take what you can get, minus 1d6 damage, or you have to take several shots, reducing your ammo by 1.
I think this actually makes sense. He's going to take several shots to try to get their attention.
Okay. Sure.
So he's going to, like, shoot one. They probably, like, it gets their attention. Shoot another one to, like, really start to rile them up.
Yeah, and just keep it going until, like, you catch their attention.
Yeah.
They all kind of turn and start moving toward you.
Right.
Yeah, go ahead and roll your damage die.
Is it plus anything, or is it
Nope,
just the die?
just the die.
6.
6. Nice. Yeah, you're actually able to kill 2 of these.
Cool.
As you kind of drop them, you, like, shoot one right through the eye, and it drops immediately, and none of the other ones even notice at first. And then you shoot another one, and you're like, oh, come on. Like, they're not even noticing. And so for, like, the next couple shots, you intentionally aim for non-lethal things, like into the body and, you know, the limbs and things like that. And one of them just kind of turns and... and as it starts to, like, feel the pain of this, it, like, takes a full second for it to even register. And then you know, send another arrow, and, you know, they start to turn, and some of them are, you know, wounded, but they kind of notice you standing there. And I think Moss lets out a little, like, chirp of, like, oh, they've seen us.
Yeah.
And then you see them start to, like, shamble, and then they start to break into just this uncoordinated, creepy run toward you.
He's like, perfect.
Yeah. All right. And you are being pursued by these shamblers. You are successful in drawing them all away. But in order to not be caught by shamblers, what are you doing to avoid them?
He's gonna try to run back, like, into the more denser areas of the forest. And so this is probably tricky because he wants them to keep chasing him and not lose him immediately and start working their way back.
Yeah.
So he needs to stay close enough to where they're following, but
so my
not get too far.
initial thought is that I'm going to have you roll Defy Danger, and I'm just curious which ability score we're going to use. To me, I'm imagining you moving quick enough, and then also gracefully avoiding, you know, roots and branches and things like that to trip you. That seems like plus Dex.
Yeah, and he's eventually going to lose them by, like, climbing a tree, and then if it's dense enough, which,
you know, hopping
hopefully
to
is
another
hopping
tree.
trees until he's away from view.
For this first leg of just, you know, staying out of reach but just barely, go ahead and roll Defy Danger plus Dex.
8.
Okay, let's see.
Rebecca.
It's unfair sitting next to Zach, bro.
Worst outcome, hard bargain, or ugly choice.
This is why no one sits next to you on
So
the
you
podcast.
do succeed.
Oh, wow.
As you are running, one of your quivers gets caught on a tree branch, and you run a few steps, and it's caught and lost behind you. And you see that you could potentially have time to go back and get it, but that would put you right in front of the snapping teeth and scratching claws of these monsters. Do you risk it for the arrows, or do you just keep moving?
That's 3 ammo that I would lose if I lost this. I can't go down to 2 ammo for the rest of this. I'm gonna risk it. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll risk it.
Are you just trying to do it with speed, or are you taking a different tactic? Because this would again be Defy Danger.
I think that makes sense.
Sure. Go ahead and roll plus Dex.
9.
Roll 1d6 for me.
5.
You go back and you snag your quiver off the tree, or you try to. You have to end up actually, because they're right there, you end up having to break the branch to get it free.
Yeah.
And as you turn to run, one of them launches themselves at you and manages to sink their teeth into your shoulder, and you're going to take 5 damage.
Okay.
That would be reduced by armor if you have any armor.
Yes, I've got 1 armor.
Okay, so you take 4 damage.
Okay.
But you manage to pull away and keep ahead of them. And once you've led them on long enough, you are able to kind of outpace them or climb a tree and avoid them and slowly start making your way back.
Okay.
But you have succeeded in that endeavor.
Cool.
Perrin, you watch as your cousin leads these shamblers away into the forest. Their kind of unearthly moans fading into the distance, and you see that this unmoving figure back against the wall, head down, cloak covering their figure, is motionless.
I think I'm gonna wait for the sounds to be far enough where I think it's safe, and then she's gonna
They disappear eventually.
start edging into like the field and seeing if like anything else changes. And if nothing else changes, she's gonna slowly make her way one step at a time, still keeping very high alert for any stragglers that might have not left with him. And then she's gonna put her hand in her pocket again, and she's gonna approach the body on the floor.
Yeah. You walk up to it without seeing any other creatures or threats.
She's gonna kick the leg, but not just like a little tap. She's gonna kick it hard.
Okay.
So like if they were faking, like they would obviously be thrown off.
Yeah, you kick the leg and it moves, but only on only from the force of your kick. Just kind of flops over a little bonelessly.
I'm gonna take my hand out and gonna grab my staff that I've been walking with, and I just kind of use the edge of it to like lift its face up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Do I recognize them?
You see the face of a man covered in hair and kind of nasty pustules. This matted, nasty beard, and just a warty, infected face. This is not somebody you know. You would guess that this is another Ravager.
Does he look like he died recently?
Yes. As you kind of lift it up, you see that his arms were kind of over his midsection, and they fall away a little bit, and you see that his whole kind of chest and midsection is stained dark with relatively fresh blood.
So we were following 2 tracks.
Yep.
And one of them was an animal track.
Yep.
And one of them were the human tracks. And this is where the human tracks lead?
The human tracks passed by here, and you think that this definitely could be the human tracks.
Are there any mushrooms around?
No, there are not any mushrooms around.
Damn it! I need more mushrooms around this fucking place.
Not within sight.
She's gonna knock him over onto his side. After she knocks on his side, and obviously he's dead. There's nothing around. She's gonna be like, I need stuff around. And so she's gonna
make some mushrooms.
Yeah, she's gonna make some mushrooms. She lays the person out flat, just like
sure
on their back, and
you can always just to say investigate a little bit further, right? Like I give you the surface level information, but if I give you every detail, I'd just be talking nonstop. I already feel like I am, but that's kind of the GM's job. But you can always discern realities. Is when you closely study a situation or person, roll plus wisdom, and then you get to ask questions about it. So you can always do that if you want to know a little bit more. Just wanted to put that out there. Not that there's necessarily anything that you need to know about this specific thing.
Would that include making assumptions about what happened to him and stuff like that?
Discovering more clues. Yeah, could be.
I think I will do that then before I destroy his body.
Go ahead and roll plus wisdom.
7. That's a 7.
That's a 7. On a 7 to 9, you get to ask one of those questions.
What should I be on the lookout for?
As you kind of lay him out, getting him ready to fill him with spores and begin the decay process, you get a closer look at his wounds. And you see that while it is contained to his midsection, his injuries are severe. This isn't just like he took an arrow and bled out. You actually see that he has been disemboweled, like his rib cage has been cracked and most of his organs have just been scooped out. And you see that this is kind of a focused but still incredibly strong and brutal method of killing. And you kind of connect the dots and think, oh, whatever killed this guy was probably the same thing that killed the other Ravagers back home. And whatever that is, maybe this creature that's traveling with them, that is definitely a threat were you to encounter it.
I'm having a bad sneaking suspicion. But she'll clock that. And then she'll finish doing her ritual, which is probably taking all the clothes off the guy because that inhibits the mushrooms. And then kind of essentially cuts the two major arteries where the neck is, so like there's more movement in the neck. And then she's probably, since he's already eviscerated, I guess that kind of frees up some space. So she's gonna throw some dirt in there too. And then she's probably gonna crack his skull open and then probably throw some dirt on top of it.
Yeah.
And then she from her other pocket, so she has two, so in one pocket she kind of has like spell components, and the other one she's kind of got her mushrooms. And so she's gonna, I'm not sure if it's still up because it must have been over an hour, right?
Yeah, at this point you're 2 legs into the journey. Yeah.
Well, she can,
Those mushrooms aren't super helpful either because they're kind of disconnected from their
Yeah.
fungal network at that point. And I mean, the spores within them is what you use, and then the mushroom itself just serves as kind of more food for the spores as they grow once you put them in things.
I know, it's just the personality of them that I like. So
I'm not a botanist. If that's incorrect, don't at me.
And so she's gonna try to remember which mushroom that she likes more, because some of them are really helpful and some of them are really annoying, and she calls them. And so she's like, okay, I think this one. And then what she does is she holds it out in front of her, and she closes her eyes, and she feels like she draws power to the mushroom. From
Calls
yeah.
upon the weird to come here and infuse this mushroom with its energy.
It's a weird sight because usually, plants don't move. But the mushrooms almost seem to crawl out of her hand, down her arm, and into his body, and spread at like a rate that's kind of almost unnatural through his body, starting from inside the neck into his chest cavity, all around inside of him.
By the time that you are finished with this and Bark returns, there are already like new mushrooms sprouting out of his eyes and ears, and open wounds. This is a very much an accelerated process, and you kind of draw that energy of the weird here and give it the fuel it needs to expand and create this like place of future power here. Spread its influence through decay. Bark kind of emerges, probably a little bit out of breath. You have been running for quite a bit, climbing some trees.
And have a little bite on me.
Yeah, and you get a little chomp on you. But you have returned.
Okay.
What do you do from here?
Could I actually investigate this tower thing a bit? Like,
Sure.
see basically just what happened here recently? Like, if I can get a bit of a better idea.
That sounds like Discern Realities.
Yeah.
Literally, what happened here recently is a question on Discern
okay.
Realities. So
Okay. And that's, plus whiz.
plus your wisdom, yes. Wisdom modifier.
7.
7. Okay, you get
Then
to
I will ask that question.
yeah.
What happened here recently?
What happened here recently? So you see evidence of a family of voles that lived here, their home, and you kind of get the scent of it and investigate. But they are no longer here, and you would guess that is because the shamblers decided to move in. And when shamblers gather in loathsome places like ruined buildings and bogs and just, not nice areas, they kind of get together, and this is something that helped you identify them as you came up on them. They kind of hum and sometimes howl and even wail, just lamenting at what they have become, and it drives animals away.
Yeah.
You do see there are a few mushrooms in here, not within eyesight of whatever would have happened outside. But this is just a dank, ruined building that is now devoid of any life, thanks to the shamblers who set up here. Who kind of are drawn to each other.
Yeah.
Weirdly, they always seem to find each other and form small packs or hordes, even. And they just make it uncomfortable for any living thing to be around them.
And did that Ravager have anything on him?
I'm gonna say no, not on this single Ravager. Nothing worth saving. Like a rusty weapon and nasty, clothes that are torn and smelly, but nothing you'd actually want to keep off of him.
Okay.
And it's best not to loot jerky off of Ravagers because they don't have qualms about cleaning Grandpa. In fact, they'll kill him themselves, and they carry around the skulls and interesting leathers and jerky. But yeah, so nothing of use on this Ravager. Not to mention that they're dirty and nasty and gross. Next leg of the journey.
Yeah.
Go ahead and roll Wilderness Tracker.
I'll ask Moss to circle the area.
Yeah.
Help look for
Moss will do
tracks.
so.
That's 14 actually.
It's like I want you to win, but I also don't want you to win.
Okay, so you get 2 marks.
I didn't even need Moss's help, but thank you.
I've never seen a 6 in my life.
Never heard of her. You pick back up on the tracks of this beast, this strange animal, but its tracks are now alone. You see no accompanying humanoid set of tracks. And they come to a point where they have to divert to travel along a basically impenetrable wall of foliage, like a thicket that would be extremely difficult to press through, that kind of forms this natural wall of vegetation that you'd have to hack your way through.
Okay.
And you follow as this set of tracks moves along this thicket, and eventually you come to an ancient stone arch just standing in the wilderness, and you see that the wall kind of comes up to it, and then there's the arch, and there's an opening through the arch, and then the thicket continues on the other side, almost as if this is a door through this wall into whatever lies beyond. And you both know that this is the sort of thing that means you are entering into a place that is truly the wilds, right? Like, these are the types of things that are the domain of something great, or this is an area that will be affected by a certain type of energy from the weird, or is ruled by an entity or something like that.
Yeah.
And the tracks lead into it.
So this is where we should leave Grandpa.
Yeah.
Oh, for that, do I need to roll for a boon, or was the...
Yes. Go ahead and roll a d8.
3?
That's another trail revealed, so that makes sense. So it is very clear. So you get another mark. So the trail revealed, your quarry fails to cover their tracks, gain an extra mark. So you are tearing through this. We are at 7 out of 12.
7 out of 12. All
Yeah.
right. Yeah. Doing good.
There's almost kind of a natural passageway formed by the foliage once you go through this, and it is very dark in there. You might even want to just bury Grandpa out here.
Yeah, I think before we track
Before you go in.
deeper, we this is where Grandfather should be buried. I don't know what the tradition would necessarily look like for the burial rites for our people. Do you have an idea?
No, but if you just let Perrin do her thing, and you just kind of help her, she'll do another ritual like she did before, except this time, she pulls out a mushroom that you've never seen before. It's crazy looking, and it's bright blue. This time, instead of just desecrating Grandpa's body,
ripping him open and cracking him apart. Yeah.
She will instead place it near his empty like because his
Where his
arm
arm
was-
ends, yeah.
where his arm ends, and she'll close her eyes and she'll feel the weird pull in from the outside, and then the mushroom, it does the same thing that you've seen a million times that she's done it before. It crawls off her hand, almost slithering, and slips into Grandpa, and his skin becomes blue and almost kind of waxy looking as these mushrooms, these bright blue mushrooms, bloom from outside of all his wounds, looking almost like flowers.
We probably sit there for a while just to pay respects.
As you call that energy of the wild and you allow these mushrooms to kind of grow, they don't just grow from like the wound, but as you've kind of laid him out, there's like this trail of mushrooms that ends up growing like from where the wound is and like from where his severed legs are. And so like as you're like, if you were to look down at him, the mushrooms kind of form a full silhouette of a human, growing into the shape of an arm and a leg along the ground. And you know that he will kind of be memorialized by this colony of mushrooms.
Very cool. And then I think that's when we start after the trail again, and start our trek deep into the wilds.
Yeah.